can say you can lose your career. You can lose the ability to have that check come because you're saying something that maybe a sponsor or a network or a TV exec won't like.
Yeah, that's part of it.
Do you think about that at all? Because
it's real. I've lost many a check. I've lost jobs that I've already had and were taken away from me because studios or people thought that I was too political or too much of a militant figure, and it happens with some frequency, but that's part of it. That's what I signed up for, and this is more important to me than that. I'm not going to pretend it's not real. It's real. I get real death threats. That's really part of it, but this is worth it for me. This is my only life.
The inane irrationality of people when you speak truth, because that's what you're just talking about, reality. That somebody would threaten your life because you're saying this is happening and this shouldn't happen. Like, what do the death threats look like?
It's just a personification of fear and cowardice and inadequacy in people's lives. People feel like they're when you have generations of people who are conditioned to believe that they've earned the advantage that they have over other people without actually doing anything but being straight or male or white or American, to take that away.
Is it taking it away to say...
it's not taking it away at all.
These kids are being killed.
It's not taking it away at all. It's like saying, somebody said, I didn't create this, but somebody said, like, freedom isn't pie. It's not, if I have a piece, it doesn't mean you get one less piece. And so as I'm not actually taking anything away, but we're just saying we want to play too. You said that there was law and order.
Right.
What about if I'm following the law and those who are I pay to uphold that law are shooting my child in the street? Can I maybe have a say? No? Okay. So far right conservatism is really just shut the fuck up. It's just shut up. Let us do what we're doing. We're going to be here. We're going to take. Stay there. Shut up while I take. And if you say anything, you're a rabble rouser. You're starting something. And that's a slave mentality, a slaver mentality. That is boring to me.
I had a Twitter fight this weekend because I had the audacity to say that Trump is a racist, right?
Yeah.
And so then the Trump trolls come out and they want to give you video. And Twitter is a very strange environment to have conversations. So I don't do discourse.
I learned that. Yeah.
Right. So, but the frustration is, here are the facts, but they don't matter to you, right?
Exactly.
So how do we, as a society, move forward? You're a teacher, I actually am a professor as well. How do we move forward if we can't agree that these are facts?
I think with a not insignificant portion of the population, we can. I do university talks and conversations a few times a year, often with a huge white population, which I say to say that I've seen examples of people get it. If there's any curiosity at all, there is a growing demographic of folks who are can realize they can walk and chew gum at the same time. They can be privileged and acknowledge privilege and still sleep at night and still eat your meals and still be decent to others. Nobody's asking you to do much of anything. So I am optimistic, even though we're going through this kind of like fever dream right now.
Fever dream. Well,
it's when toxins are coming out of your body, you get a lot of pimples, but you're getting the bad stuff out. So it's a really ugly stage, right? When your fever is peaking, it's the worst, but it means it's going to break. And I don't say that as off of blind faith, or I don't want to over cliche it, but I do think we're having a high level of exposure to both. Was it Mark Twain's credited with saying, it's better to be thought a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. And I think that members of the far right are exposing themselves to be actually vapid, empty vessels that are just mad and just don't want to move off their spot. But they actually have a following, and they're affecting policy. Most important, power is attached to it. That's far more impactful than feeling.
Do you think it's wise for us to label? Because I think calling people far right or left wing, right, I think this is beyond politics. I think it's beyond political ideology.
What is beyond politics?
The climate that we're in right now is not attached to a political. While there is one political party that is, exacting a lot of the terror in this country.
Sure.
It's attached more to a notion of whiteness than it is to being a Republican or a Democrat. And I think we,
Sure.
you know, so
Both are true. Both are true. I think that if you're talking, I don't care how somebody feels over there, but if they're enacting or impacting policy that affects my life and my school district, my child can attend, that bothers me. So it bothers me where your feelings intersect with politics, that intersect with my ability to live in a community and feel safe. I am very effective, I can say, at being able to communicate difficult ideas to somebody who might have a very different walk of life than me in a way that is non-threatening and inclusive and allows us to go on a journey together. I can and do that all the time.
I need to learn from you.
I do it in white schools. I did it in some ways in that speech. But if you're not willing to accept it at a certain point, like I can't go all the way down into the hole with you. The rope only goes so far down. You got to meet me somewhere. Not because you're not valuable, but because I have other people to work with too. I got other things to do. Again, I only got one life as far as I know. Like we have shit to do. So I totally take your point that you can't walk around labeling people as bad guy, good guy. You're not getting anywhere with that. So I absolutely appreciate the value of nuance and inclusion in language, and conditioned whiteness, as I said at that time, this invention that says that you are. That you have these things that you've earned. You know, whiteness is a hustle. You're getting conned too. There was no whiteness before. Swedish people thought they were different than French people. Thought they were different than. Yeah, y'all have beef. Y'all have issues. You have trade wars. You have all these things. You got conned by white landowners into thinking that because you were organizing with black and brown working class folks to believe that, oh, don't get with them. They're actually really bad. You should be with us, even though you'll never be us. So people think they're gonna. You're not a millionaire like Rush Limbaugh or Hannity or any of these other devils. Like they're not giving you any money, but you think that you can aspire to be them. So you'll keep chasing.
Because there's an Alex Jones who was trash and then became.
Yeah, like
because one will pop up every generation
for sure.
Give hope to the other minions.
That's we can only save so many.
Right.
But for me, black liberation and health is primary to me.
Let's get to that. Black liberation. You are on this cannabis kick that I'm on with you, even though I've never partaken in the herb ever. Sure. But I recognize the power of it. Behold a Pale Horse I read in college. So that took me on a journey. One of my best friends is a weed head. So we've had many conversations, which is interesting. How did you get involved in this cannabis
interesting.
Space?
I'm not a weed head. This is actually not about cannabis per se for me. This is about
justice.
Black freedom. This is about social justice and equity and the application of laws. This came to me as an idea that I thought had really dope creative mechanism. Pulled together this really dope creative on behalf of men who just wanted to fund something that was honest about the history. The new normal. This project I did with Spike Jones. We got Spike Jones involved. He's a genius. He's great. He's a really wonderful person also. And so we did a project that contextualizes what I know. Let me back up for a second. I can see, like the internet boom or any other boom, I can see that cannabis is obviously it's blowing up. Meaning a lot of revenue is being generated off of it. Who cares how you feel? There's millions and millions of dollars being made off of it. Are we included? No. How can we be included? Do we know the language? Are we literate in the language and the policies and why it is we can't get licenses or what it is to have a dispensary? The fact that black people, we always carry like a crazy disproportionate amount of charges over nonsense that white people get celebrated for. And because you have charges, you're now blocked from the industry as a whole. So when we talk about cannabis and we watch, like, this is weird. Like, a lot of my homies are doing 5 to 10 for possession, but I see all these bearded white dudes in Colorado lining up making millions of dollars. I'm sorry, I'm confused. Like, is this really bad and toxic and a narcotic and a stage, part of the war on drugs? You just told me it was all these horrible things, right. But when there's whiteness involved, it's okay. I'm confused. So I saw a lot of promotion, and I live in California, as you said. There's billboards about weed and dispensaries and delivery services and everything. Delivery services, and it's good for your yoga practice, and you can rub it into your mom can rub it into her knuckles for joint pain, and it's for veterans and PTSD, and there's incredible uses for this stuff.
Look at the market. Look at as you're talking,
Yeah.
in just a couple of years, this is not even a
Exactly.
generation.
We're witnessing a revolution
The
like that.
marketing behind now, so they can say you're evil, and then 2 years from now, you're great.
Because all of this is marketing. News is marketing. All information that you get, your history books are marketing. They're marketing white supremacy. They want you to, religion is marketing. They want you to think white people are God. That's why your God is white. It's marketing. They want you to think that they settled this country instead of stole it. Instead of, they want you to believe that George Washington was just a pure military genius, not a kidnapper, sex trafficker, human trafficker. Africans.
How dare you
Africans
talk about
grew,
the father of our country?
Both. He's both.
That
Guess what?
Jesse.
The Declaration of Independence is an incredible document. This country is awesome in many ways. It's also incredibly dysfunctional, violent, and pathologically fucking gross in many ways. And you can be both, right? Your rock star could be, absolutely. You can have a genius songwriter who's also a pervert. Like you can,
and a pedophile.
Yeah, it's all. I wasn't even thinking of that one specifically.
Okay.
But I would have used a harsher term than pervert. But all these things, it's just. I think it's important to, as much as possible, just be honest. It's like thinking about raising a kid or something. Like, you can lie to them thinking you're protecting them, but you're really just avoiding the confrontation.
Right.
And then they grow up thinking that you're actually an evader. So who won in that long term? Like, just be forthright to begin with. So that's how I entered into this. It wasn't because I'm some wild stoner. It's because I realized that I can't trust white America to adjudicate their laws fairly in a non-anti-black fashion. You're anti-black, so I don't trust the way you're going to legislate it, because I've lived in the suburbs, and I watch these kids smoke weed, grow weed, sell weed, and it's fine. And they're fine. They get to go to college and live their life and not live behind a fucking cage. While where I grew up before that, we all got locked up for that stuff. So that's all. I just see inconsistency, and this is a way to try to put the language out there so folks can get literate.
Every day I struggle with having these conversations, because we do, and not offend. And so I'm at a point now where I don't care whether you're offended. I have zero tolerance. We're not going back and forth. If you troll, you get blocked and deleted from Twitter. I'm not even going to engage in conversation with you on the radio. But I know that there's a backlash to that in terms of not being effective.
Marketable and safe.
Yeah. So I struggle with, like, we need to reach people. But at the same time, the frustration was, as soon as you said white people, white America, if you're white, if you identify as white, you've now tuned out or tuned in a way that now I feel attacked.
Well, you know what? Two things, speaking of two things being true, I realize that a lot in this country, people have tried to pretend that the word white is their version of nigger. Right? Like, if you say white,
you're racist.
People freak out at just the word white, as if it's somehow an attack on you. Like if you think O.J. Simpson is a murderer, you're somehow calling me a murderer. It's true that that label they've tried to, like, N-word that label. I don't care. That community does not drive racial nomenclature for me. Like, you've lost that privilege a long time ago.
How are you this black, Jesse Williams?
What'd you say?
How are you this black? Your mom's white, right?
Yeah. Mom's white. I brought her there. That's why you saw her.
Right, I know.
This is always why it's so funny, that accusation. Yeah, I love my mother and my family. Right. Most of my family is actually white in terms of bodies living. But my dad is, both of my parents are incredibly conscious and put working people first. I grew up, in the 80s in Chicago in the crack era with two factory worker parents who were activists and organizers, and I learned about the collective body as primary. How we all live is far more important than how we individually live. And my dad is really fucking black.
Yeah.
And really clear about it. And that's the curriculum I grew up in. Not in school, but at home. Yeah, reading lists, actual having to consume a lot. And also it's music as well. So it's Baldwin, it's Ivan Van Sertima, it's Sheikh Anta Diop, it's Africans, the African origin of civilization. They came before the Mayflower.
Came before Columbus.
They came before Columbus and before the Mayflower, and Black civilizations. It's a whole range. It's W.B. Du Bois. It's Song of Solomon. It's Toni Morrison. It's it's Ralph Ellison, it's Richard Wright, it's everything Malcolm X has ever uttered. I grew up on those as tapes. My dad would make me tapes of his speeches, and but it's also Bob Dylan, it's Fela Kuti, it's Bob Marley, like the real Bob Marley, not the Legend album. It's Peter Tosh, it's James Brown. It's James Brown. It's James Brown. It's James Brown.
It's
first
black,
hip
and I'm
hop
proud
artist.
James Brown.
It's just understanding context and history, and also just having a. I grew up with a, which was not fun, a duty and obligation. By the way, it's Nina Simone, Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman. Also, it's like, it's understanding that like this isn't for or about you. What are you doing for Black people? Cool story. What are you doing for Black people? Like, great, that's cool. What are you doing for Black people? You know how many people fought and died and bled for you to have the privilege of maybe being here for 20 years? How dare you spit on that by being a slob, by being lazy, by being incurious? Our lives are but a speck in like the history of the world. So like, I just take it seriously.
This does transcend race. I've recently become very acquainted with Father Flagel.
Sure, yeah, in
Chicago. Who also is he's very Black too, even though he's very, very committed to the same kind of justice and,
yeah, it's being human and decent. Like it's realizing that I can, by virtue of watching you drink from a fountain, doesn't take water out of my cup. Like, you're not stealing from me. There's no people try to, what is your white mom thing? My